So there's enough room to record the whole thing. Don't want anyone to miss out. So if there's nothing new to report, let's start with some spine mobility. So seated for Deborah, hands and knees for us. And we're going to think cat-to-cow, which I know is a yoga move, but the lower back. So we're going to try and push the lower back up towards the ceiling and then arch a little bit. Tense the muscles of the bottom, or grip a yoga block. Just get the back moving nice and slowly. The range of movement is go for what feels good, as opposed to pushing the end range. Feeling how that's feeling today. And then I'll get Emma and Judy going with some sacroiliac release, and Deborah will get you going a different way with your set. You'll be lying on your side for the next move, Deborah. Emma and Judy staying on your hands and knees. So the movement is I'm lifting one knee off the floor, repeating, lifting and lowering it. But if I show you head on, my hands are still on the floor. I'm just going to move them out of the way. This bum cheek is lifting up off the floor. And can you see my thighs are still parallel? So I'm pulling the tummy in the way we do with Pilates, and I'm repeating one side about 10 times. And your version, Deborah, would be a hip wiggle on your side, where you're trying to pull this hip backwards, almost like you're turning to face the ceiling. Or I suppose if you had a sofa behind you or a wall behind you, your top bum cheek would be going backwards to try and touch that wall. Thighs are staying pretty parallel with this. So roughly 10 on one side, 10 on the other, as long as you feel you're getting on with it. So you'll have to just roll around for kebab a little bit for the first few, Deborah, I'm afraid. But it should feel good. Once we've done 8 on one side, 8 on the other. Interestingly, or it might not be interesting for you, I'm finding this hip harder to lift. I'm going to exhale, lift, inhale, lower. Roughly 10. Roughly the pace of your breath. Strange move. Shame Bonnie's not with us live. I'd love to see her face doing this.
This is moves like this is where I miss Katrina.
Yes. I was having a little look at our old videos that I've saved, and she was on a couple of them, which was so lovely to see. Yes. So once you've finished, let's get the back moving just a little bit more, lying down on your back. If your back's very, very sensitive, then you might want to just do 6 reps and a rest, 6 repetitions and a rest. So, arms by the side, relax the shoulders, core bracing, rolling the pelvis into a posterior tilt. So the back of the pelvis pushes into the floor, the lower back's flat, and then you roll the pelvis away from you into an arched back. I'm trying to keep my ribs nicely tucked in, posterior tilt, anterior tilt, back arches into an anterior tilt, lower back arches, lower back flattens for a posterior tilt. We're trying to switch on muscles as we do it, so we're trying to squeeze the muscles at the bottom as we do it. You might even be able to do this in tabletop. Somewhere in between is hanging onto the legs. Flatten the back. Now my legs are not moving. I coached this in class yesterday. I had a lot of people moving the legs around. They're still in this tabletop position if you're doing it. You can even do single leg tabletop for 4 reps and single leg tabletop for another 4 reps. Control both directions. Next level up is the feet lower halfway down to floor and they stay there. Last 4 reps. Can you move under control? Do you need to grip a yoga block or a Pilates ball between the thighs? Get that control. More. Carefully lowering the feet to floor. Single leg circles. So straighten out one leg, doesn't matter which side you do. Start with a bent knee. Pull the knee into chest, circle it out to the side. And the arms are not very wide. We're just going to get the hip oiled. 4 circles in one direction with a bent leg, 4 circles in the other direction. So if you're clunking away like I am, means that I'm not core braced and I'm too unstable. So I'm just bracing the tummy muscles, squeezing the bottom, and I'm going to try and keep the hips still. Change direction if you haven't been counting. So I'm doing everything to keep the pressure the same under both sides of my bottom, trying to stop that rocking around. Same move, 4 moves one way for the other, but you can make it tougher with a straight leg. So bracing the core, circling round, keep the pressure the same under both sides of your bottom. Ideally not stressing so much at the necks and shoulders taking the move. Change direction, pushing that hip into floor. And once you've done your 4 on that side, change direction. So, change legs. So we've got 16 reps in total. You've got 4 clockwise, 4 anti-clockwise with a bent knee. And then you can either repeat it with a bent knee or repeat it with a straight leg. But this should be quite a lot of work because you're working and bracing so hard to keep the hips very, very still. This shouldn't be on the easy scale. Should be in the intermediate. So my core's bracing. You're going to keep the weight the same in both legs, in both bum cheeks, should I say. Change direction for me. And then I'm on to my second 8. I'm going to straighten my leg. Doesn't matter which way you go. Just don't let the bottom leave the floor. Brace so hard. Fight and clench. I'm very clunky today, but I haven't been doing my hip care. Direction. Once you've finished, hip bridges, just in case you're working at a faster pace than me. Exhale on the out, inhale on the reset. Well, that was harder work than I was planning to make it. I think I only did 3 in those last ones. Squeeze the bottom, lift the hips as high as you can, get a great stretch, lower down one vertebrae at a time, and repeat. So, I'm using it to loosen up the back, move one vertebra at a time. Deborah, it might suit you, if your back's not great, to work with a very stiff back. Hips, lower back, bottom. Deborah might be landing straight to the bottom rather than getting the spine. Let's go for a couple more. We're going to take the feet as wide as the mat, going with our twists. So resting on the heels, dorsiflexion at the ankle, arms relatively close, but hopefully not in the way. Turn your hips right on their side, pause there, and cat curl. So really round the back. You should get a decent stretch in that top leg. Change sides. Twist. Exhale, cat curl. Push the ribs backwards. A little bit of a stretch moment. Couple more. Just to remind you to get the ribs, the abs to fire up. Now, can I get you to point the knees towards me? So do this move one more time, stop when the knees are pointing towards the screen. And we're going to try and keep the heels still, the hips still. We're going to turn this into an open, closed door. So reach forward. Go slow, make sure the knees don't mind it. I'm still resting on the heels. And we're going to slowly rotate from the torso, around the spine, maybe down the back shoulder to floor, and then close again. So the legs are now still. We've just hit upper body more. Maybe join me with a little overhead arc. Let's see how good filter is on Zoom, whether it's just filtered out the rumbling of my tummy or not. So I'm very strong. Let's got 4 more. I'm very strong through the core muscles. The bottom's squeezing. My abs are solid. So I've done a couple of drills where I perhaps got you to poke in your abs and you're trying to make the tummy muscles really tight. It's that kind of tensing to switch on the TVA. And then no rib flare. So we've got this rounding of the back as if you're trying to cat curl as well. And hopefully breathing somewhere amongst all of that. To change sides, we open out onto our back. Keep the abs really tight as we point the knees the other way. Turn the hips on their side, clench the bottom, and you turn onto your side as well. We'll feel a bit more delicate on this side. So I'm going to lock in the tummy, the bottom, that feeling of a bit of a cat curl so the abs switch on. And if it suits you, you might take that overhead stretch for your 6. Overhead arch. Hopefully still awake. Double shoulder, I'm a wreck today. I'm just doing open closed door, letting me circle today. That's all, I know why it is. I have a little bit of tightness in the back of the upper back and neck from poor posture, dare I admit. And your shoulders seize up when you haven't got clear movement there. So we might address that together in a minute. Open onto your back, cat curl again, push the ribs backwards, point the knees towards the screen. We're going to work again, but a different move. So knees drop towards me, chest is facing the ceiling, and I'd like you to take your fingertips behind your head. So my fingertips are going at the base of the skull. You might choose to put your head on a yoga block if you're delicate in the neck. Level 1 is to exhale and cat curl. Just push the back of the ribs into the floor, round your back, round your spine. Carefully release and repeat. Exhale, cat curl. Level 2 is to exhale, cat curl, and lift the chest and head. So Bonnie, I know you'll be doing a recording of this. If your neck's not great today, don't worry about this phase. Just do where you're trying to push the ribs down, but rest your head on a yoga block. Don't worry about lifting the head. Of course, same for everyone else. If you want the next level up, whether your head is on the floor or whether you're lifting with me, we're going to have a go at lifting 1 leg or 2. Start with the front leg, the lowest leg. That'll be the easiest one. I'm going to keep my head lifted. Now I'm going to try the back leg. Might fall over, might not. Oh! You can stay with that, or you can try and double it. Check your back isn't wanting to arch. Mine is, which means it's strong. Keep my knees on the side. Once again, one of Sarah's weird magic moves. I'm going to hold the head in that position. We've got up to 6. If you're doing individual legs or alternating sides, still only 6. 6 breaths, 6 reps. Heels are landing back to the edges of the mat each time. I think I'm going faster and faster. That's my last one. Whoa, where did that come from? That was strong. If you need to hug your knees, hug your knees, and then when you're ready, heels as wide as the mat, turn your knees the other way. Don't think I want to do this. Level 1 is just breathe. Exhale, breathe out. Obviously, because that's what exhale is. Arch round your back, cat backwards into the mat. Do a couple of these. Oh, I know I'm really tight because I can feel it gently pulling down through the front of the thigh. Level 2 is a head lift. You cat curl, you exhale, the chin is slightly tucked in, lift and lower. Your chest is facing the ceiling. You can stay with this. Whether your head is on or off the floor, you can do the leg lifts. So I'm going to lift the bottom leg first. Exhale, lift. Inhale, lower. I'm keeping my head lifted. Whether I can lift this top leg, I don't know. Double it if you want. Up to 6 breaths. Taking on this side, but I thought I might. Well, how's that for a weird move? Feels a landing on the edge of the mat each time. 3, 2. Need to know single leg stretch if you've been rushing it and you're done. 1. Lower down, carefully reset. Give your knees a hug. I think we should call it a day after that one. That was tough. Hanging on to the leg if you need a breather, which I think I do today, but maybe letting go. You feel okay with it and you want to stay on the way. So keep going. Let me just check in and see a little bit more closely how you guys are doing. Not too traumatized, I hope. How are your abs? That was really strong for me. Just enjoy the release. I'm taking the lazy one. I'm stretching my leg on the floor. Because that's how my energy is. Let's go for 4 more. Use it to get a release in the front of the hip. Maybe to let the abs recover if they're a bit traumatized like mine are. But we do want a little bit of switch on in the abs. That's one. Okay, carrying on with our hip strength. I've done quite a lot of this, selfishly, because I've been neglecting my hip and I need to get it a bit stronger. So propping up on your side, it gets really strong on the neck. Obviously option 1 is stop, but if you want to try and carry on in the work, you can prop up on your hand for a bit and then maybe do the work here, or even lie all the way down for plans. So hip stability, side plank on your forearm if you can. Waist lifts and lowers, just 4 times to get the lower back release. Exhale, lift. Exhale, lower. Just check the shoulder doesn't mind it. Chest up nice and high. And once again, this is something you can do on the hand if your neck's quite vulnerable. And wiggle. So we've done our 4. You're welcome to keep going. We're going to pop other hand on hip. We're going to try and work in a clam or a floating clam. So squeeze the bottom, push the bottom leg into floor. Floating climb is actually modified this way today, where your feet are off the floor and the top leg goes 3 and 2 and hold. Now to make this work the bottom a little bit more, you need to roll forward a little bit. So this top hip is a little bit further forward than your lower hip. And now you can get into the glute here. However, if you want to get into both glutes, you lift up. Lift this hip as high as you can. Lift the feet, lift the knee, and roll forward a bit. 3 and 2 and 1. 6 reps maximum, it's strong. Oh, I found some instability in my shoulder with this forward roll. 3, 2, 1. The neck's had enough stop, but the support of the neck and the muscles just above the bra strap in between the shoulder blades. Get those squeezing together. Someone described it as an elastic band pulling to that one point, pulling all the back of the shoulders and the back towards that point. Once you're done, come on all the way down to floor. side kick. We'll give the neck a bit of support. I'm going to keep the bottom leg bent, top leg comes on up. I'm going to lift my lower waist because I know this is my lower hip. And I'm going to push the hip forward, 3, 2, the leg forward, 3, 2, 1. Leading with the heel, now lead with the toes, go back. Trying to keep the hips as still as I can to work core stability, but also to strengthen through the actual hip. As soon as the hips start moving around, you're getting mobility in the back. It's all about, you measure the stillness by seeing whether the pelvis is rocking forward and back. That wants to be pretty still, ideally in neutral spine position. 3 more, by the way, if you're still going. But also the ribs, they want to be still. So great tip is 1 thumb or finger on rib, other thumb or finger on hip bones, and that distance wants to stay about the same. Last 1 or 2, depending how the counting is going. And then we'll lower the leg to floor. We're going to finish the drill. So ideally, this bottom leg that's on the mat stretches along the mat in a straight line. So you've got a bit of an L shape. We want to have the beginning of a stretch somewhere in this leg or hip. And we're going to try and swivel the thigh and the hip bone and push this hip away from you. And I feel my waist pull up away from the floor. And maybe you can do your last 3 with the foot off the floor. Maybe that's not going to happen. I need this hand to help. Oh, open, close door, please. Bend the knees. Or stay in your L shape if you want, but I've had enough of that. Let's take a twist. Or an overhead circle if that suits you. We're going to open out the upper back before we do the other side, and this is a great position to start to loosen it out. So I'm opening it and I'm pulling the armpit backwards towards the floor, feeling it slide across the ribs. Oh, that's so nice. The wall a bit more, see if that changes the stretch. Well, it will change the stretch. Let's see if it's very tight in my hips today. 1 more for you guys. And then before we do the other side, a little bit of time lying on the back. Now, we all have the upper body in a rounded position from time to time or regularly. We need to try and lose that. So we're going to rest on the forearms, and all we're going to try and do is squeeze the shoulder blades towards each other and push the collarbones as forward as you can. So the ribs are pinned to the floor in the same spot. So get the bottom ribs, notice where the bottom ribs are, push them into the floor and keep them in the same spot. Squeeze shoulder blades together, push the collarbones forward and maybe slightly upwards, but don't let the ribs move. And then lower back down and rest. Ribs are in the same spot. Shoulder blades squeeze, push the ribs, the collarbones widen forward, the breastbone really leading that move and lowering down. If you're getting on with it, 4 more. If it's too strong, then rest for a moment. And I'm just trying to feel a whole load of muscles working in the back. So it's almost as if you're trying to, or my thought is, I'm trying to get a gap between each vertebrae of the upper spine. So I pin the shoulder blades together and I'm stretching the vertebrae of the upper spine and I'm giving attention to one part of the spine. And then I'm going higher up towards the neck to the next part of the spine, higher up the neck to the next part of the spine. And there's an awful lot of muscles in my back switching on. 1 more for me. Shoulder blades squeeze. Still got my Pilates tummy hollowed. Getting that moving. Now, if we try and rest the forehead on the hand and try and switch on those muscles that we just did, we might have a little bit more movement with our lucky cat wave, which looks like this. So squeeze the bottom, hollow the tummy. You might prefer to lift the chest in the way we just did, but I'm going to try and switch on the muscles that we just did in that last drill. So my bottom's squeezing, ribs are still, and I'm trying to squeeze shoulder blades together and stretch the upper vertebrae out. Yeah, I felt like I wanted to lift my head a bit. And then I'm just waving 6 times on one side, 6 times on the other. As long as it doesn't create any tingling or joint pain. So we try it on the other side. I'm just trying to hold that strength in the back. Keep that curved side, curved shape to my back. Shoulder blades are squeezing. It's a long time to hold it, so stop if you need to, rest if you need to. The last part of the challenge is to lift both arms off the floor 4 times. If it's too much, stop. If you get tingling, stop. Lift and lower. Make sure the lower back isn't doing all the work. Lifting those bent elbows up. Down my body a little bit. The last one. Rest the forehead on the hands. Wriggle the hips and ribs around a little bit just to check they're nicely loosened up. And then we've got our open closed door drills on the other side. So if you're wanting to face the screen, you have to pop your head on the other end of the mat. You might want a bit of a cat curl on the way back. You might even want this yoga release where the forearms are on the floor. And you're just modifying your child's pose. Or maybe you just want to find your own wriggle. You guys okay after that? It was really strong. Yeah. So we've got our little hip sequence on the other side. So we squeeze the muscles of the bottom. We have clam as our backup move. Sorry if you join me lying down. We're here, weren't we? Oh, yeah. Space for the shoulder, waist as high as you can. We started with some rib glides. Keep the chest as high as you can. And move these ribs up and down. The lift of the chest, especially when the ribs go down, is to protect the shoulder. If you need extra shoulder protection, squeeze the shoulder blades. And once again, coming up into the hand, less stress on the shoulder and the neck. Ribs are wiggling away. Roughly 4 as a minimum. And then let's try and see which clam sequence suits you. Shoulder blades are squeezing. Chest is high. Knees part, and hopefully we can get feet off floor as well. Tough. And then we're trying to roll forward a bit, so this top knee and hip are in front of the bottom knee and hip. 3 and 2 and hold. Trying to get a sense of the muscles of the bottom doing the work. So whether you need to thrust the hips forward or change that position of the bottom to get the work, play around with it. Slightly more advanced on the knees, both feet off the floor. Probably need a lot of padding and a bit of balance. 3 and 2 and 1. Sound effects are allowed. Up to 6. Very unstable like this. Nothing wrong with challenging our balance. You can do this one with the feet on the floor. It won't challenge the balance as much, but it will still challenge this hip. Last couple. And then we've got our side kick. All the way down to the floor. Stretch the leg out. Bring the leg forward. 3 and 2 and 1. Take the leg back. 3 and 2 and 1. Now, I'm adjusting for my hips. I know this hip is lower down than this hip, so that means I need a hip hitch. So it's closer to my armpit than it naturally wants to be, which means my waist will have to push to floor a bit. Six reps here. And do you remember we're measuring, or was it 8? Who knows? And we're trying to measure this distance between the rib and hip and keep it the same. So we don't want the back to be moving around, the ribs to flare, the pelvis to be moving. It's all very still and stable. That feels incredibly good for my hip. It's quite surprising. I didn't expect it to. So once you've done 6 or 8, you've got your little waves. When your foot's going to wave at me, the leg comes to floor. We've got the beginning of a stretch. Hopefully the other leg is going to be down in an L shape. My toes are pulling towards me, and I'm going to try and swivel the thigh in the socket so the knee points up. We're trying to get the strength to come from the strength of the bottom, contracting to help swivel. You might push the hip away as you do it. On this side, I'm not. My hip naturally pushes away. And then you might lift the leg off the floor and give me 6. Oh. I think my mouth's twisting with it. 3, 2, 1. Join the knees. Let's go for open, closed door. Maybe a circle overhead. And play around with the leg position, whether you want the knee in that position or not. Good. So I'm going to keep you guys going with the open, closed jaw a bit longer. I'm going to have to just run and get a cable for my batteries going to go otherwise. So enjoy for a moment. So if I challenge you to 4 more while I plug you all in, only life was that easy, hey? We're safe, we can continue with the show. All right, I'll take over again. Did you all behave? Were you okay? Let's try a little bit of seated work, a bit of balance, a bit of hamstring stretching, and a bit of core rotation. So tough, or can be tough. Ideally, we're trying not to go into an over-rounded back, at least not for this first move as we go into boat pose. So we want the back to feel very straight, even the upper back to feel very straight. We're going to try and balance. Raku yoga block between the inner thighs will help if you find this very strong on the back. But level 1 is to just barely take the feet off the floor. So 10 feet in the thighs, make these TVA muscles feel very, very solid, and then explore where you're lifting up to. If you let go, you will find it a lot tougher to not let your back lose its position. So choose whether TVA switched on, Sarah. You're able to let go or not. Just get switched on properly now. 4, long spine, especially upper back, not slouching. 4 more if you can. A little bit of back support, hands very wide. That's hands, not hands. Knees are turning side to side, your hips are turning on the side. Once again, neutral spine. So hopefully the hands will help you keep the shoulder blades quite close together. Long through the spine. And if you want to work a little harder, we do this in tabletop. Rotate. You will start to move on your mat or off your mat. Now it depends how you feel. I'm quite worked today, so I don't want to go into lower back. Certainly won't hurt it if I carry on, but I know my lower back's doing some work, so I'm not getting any benefit. So I'm going to put my feet down on the floor. I did do 3 Pilates classes and some abs yesterday, so I was probably quite fatigued. Really tightening. Let's go for 4 more, keeping my shoulder blades close together. Quite a lot of support in the arms. 3 and 2. 1, so we get rotation and strength. And now we're going to part the shoulder blades. If you can keep the big toes down, get some brownie points. I'm a bit obsessed with this move, but if you're going to cramp up, don't keep the big toes down. Round the back, part the shoulder blades, tuck the chin in as if you've got a pair of socks under your chin. Keep the back rounded on this one and see how far back you can get. You might get all the way to floor. You might keep your big toes down. You might not. If you get to floor, take a really nice stretch. Didn't make it to floor, that's okay. Exhale, can you move 1 vertebra at a time to lift? Once again, a yoga block between the knees will help. Now, if you're doing the full ones, we've got a maximum of 6. If you're doing part ones, you'll probably get nearer to 10. Maybe even 12. Exhale on the low, really tighten here. Enjoy my stretch. Still got my big toes down. In front. Just exploring the movement, pulling forward between each one. Last couple for me. If you need to stop early, that's also okay. Then it's hamstring time. On the next one, we're lowering all the way to floor. We're going to stay down. Take the arms wide. Single leg scoops. So find your neutral spine. Make the abs as solid as you can. Stretch one leg out and push it. 3, 2, 1. Lower back down. I'm leading with my heel. I know it just went off screen there. Push into your heel, lift up. 3, 2, 1. Lower. Keep the muscles at the bottom on the floor. If you want to, do it from tabletop. Stretch the leg, push with the heel. 3, 2, 1. Lower and reset. 3, 2, 1. Reset. One more on each side. Bring the feet to floor. Quick hip bridge. I'm going for 4. Just to stretch out the front of the hips. Exhale, lift. Inhale, lower. Am I slouching? I think I am. Walk your shoulder blades towards each other, Sarah. Last one. So, leg closest to the screen stretches along the mat. Leg furthest from the screen lifts up. You can have it in single leg tabletop, or you can stretch it out. And you're going to turn your hips towards me. So use your arms to stabilize, turn as far as you can, tuck the ribs in, reset. Sometimes a yoga block under the head helps take the stress out the neck. Exhale, see how far you can twist. Both shoulders need to stay on the floor, and we need the ribs not to flare. You can stay slowly, or you can start to add some momentum. If you're adding some momentum, be careful. So I'm pushing, stopping sharp and resetting. My shoulders coming on the floor slightly So I need to really think shoulder blades, squeeze shoulder blades, squeeze shoulder blades, squeeze towards each other. Up to 3 more if you want. Gentle straight leg. Then we switch sides. Leg furthest from me straightens on the floor, leg closest to me bends. Straight leg is pushing into floor, other leg can be bent or straight. And explore your maximum range of movement as you rotate and reset. Now the leg that's on the floor is pushing into the floor pretty strongly. Taking my core plant. Past it. That's better. And then if you're ready, we add a bit of momentum. If it just feels not right, then you don't need to. See the shoulder moving. And just squeeze shoulder blades together. Keep ribs down. I'll be strict on my technique. Let's go for 4 more. Tummy still pretty strongly switched on. Feet down to floor, and then we'll take another seat, going into hamstrings, wide legs, tough one, maybe sitting on yoga block, maybe bending the knees. Remember, you need to be sitting on the bony bit of the bottom, not the bony bit of the spine. So bend the knees if you need to. Turn on your side, back of the neck wants to be long, reach 3 and 2 and 1. Gap between each vertebrae as you twist. Turn on your side, 3, 2, and 1. Keep going. This.
Oh, hey, Matt.
Are you okay?
Yes, I'm going to fall off my block.
No, don't fall off your block. Let's go for 4 more so we don't have any more falling off blocks. I'm trying to keep my shoulder blades quite close together. Oh, maybe pulling your little face. That's a good stretch face. Last one on each side for me. And we'll stay with rotation. So in a moment, I'm going to do one on hands and knees. Deborah, we sometimes warm up with this one. The seated version, dorsiflexion to protect the knees, feet wider than knees. Push one knee out to the side, straight back, turn away from that knee. See how far you can twist. It's quite strong on the core. I prefer the kneeling one, 8 on one side, 8 on the other. The kneeling one is an alternative, hand fairly central, knees as wide as the mat. We need to get the back very straight though. So what I often see with this kneeling version is that people are rounding and they're no way going to be able to twist. Chest up, collarbones wide, head up. Choose which you prefer. Or what your body says you ought to prefer. Really getting the back of the neck long. Only because that's on my radar at the minute. I've had a few days where I've clearly slouched on. I do a lot of my work on my phone, which is not great. So much more happily this way. So because I'm twisting more easily on this side, I'm going to stop early and do my extra ones on the difficult side. Nothing wrong with doing extra on the harder side. Last one for me. Back to seated, nearly there. Last couple of challenges. So, taking the balance a step further, we're going to roll back a little. So level 1 is the feet are barely touching, they're on the floor, barely touching it. My lower back's a little bit rounded. And we're rocking a bit. You need to make sure you've got enough balance, enough padding for your coccyx. Maybe you can take feet off floor. Maybe you can start to roll back. Maybe you can get back up, maybe you can't. What challenges you the most? Back legs or trying to straighten them up, aka wide leg rocker? Big challenge. When you grab behind the knees with wide leg rocker, it's better because you can bend the knees to help you balance. But then the final challenge, grab above the knees. Oh, that's not so good today. Let me switch on my TVA. I think I'm just tired. Last 2 or 3. And we'll call that an energizer. And we'll also call it the last move. Stop this recording.